All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Joe La Rosa Show. I'm super excited to have here in our studio, I would call this, Mr. Edward Lee.
Yes.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. So listen, I wanted to have this episode really focus on, real estate, right? For those of you that are out there practicing real estate right now, how do you stay ahead, right now in 2023,
yes.
Right? Like, how are you able to make 2023 your best year yet? Even with all the craziness that we heard about in the beginning of the year, even some of the stuff that was happening last year with rates going up and so on, this guy right here has been able to continue to be able to just push forward in this rocket. So I wanted him on today. We're going to use him as an example of how you can make this your best year yet. But before we get into some of the things that you're doing today, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and kind of how did you get into real estate?
Yes, definitely. I was actually born in the area, and
so you're a true Floridian.
True Floridian, born in Brevard County,
okay.
And grew up in the Altamont area. And after college, I ended up in the timeshare industry.
All right.
I was working the concierge desk, and that's kind of when I discovered the timeshare world, what they were doing. So I made it a point from that point because I kept getting laid off. And I was starting over, so I was kind of an in-between job, and I noticed the timeshare world. And that's what made me really like, hey, you know what, this is what I want to do, get my license, because I can't lay myself off.
Right.
So that's what made me want to be an entrepreneur, get into the industry. First, I saw myself selling timeshare, got my start at Westgate, and it was real hardcore with the training and how they, at this point,
some of the timeshare training is like the most intense sales training you can really go through.
The mental part of the sale, the reading people, to go get it. One day it got slow at the resort, and our manager made us go knock on doors at the resort, and I end up selling a lady. The whole family end up, they love me, and they end up buying more timeshare, and that's when I realized the process of doing the process of getting people to like you, finding out what their wants, needs, and interests are, and pointing out the benefits in the product that would benefit them. And then after I transitioned out of timeshare.
How long were you in timeshare for?
I did it for about almost 2 years. Okay. Yes. So after.
So you were there like every morning at like.
Every morning.
Believe it or not, here's an actual little truth that I've actually never really said. I actually sold timeshare too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I only did it for like 2 months though, because it was, I'm not going to name the place where I went to go work at, but they were pitching what's called a lot of heat. Yeah. And so, timeshare, Westgate is a totally different setup. They have they have a great, obviously, system there, and they go by the truth. But some other places I was at, they were like, so I live in Celebration, and so they would do tours in Celebration, and they'd be like, yeah, so that's Sylvester Stallone's house, and Oprah Winfrey, that's her second home, and I'm like, no, it's not. Yeah. That's like John and so Smith. That's not who that is. But anyway, I don't mean to cut you off, but I know from my experience going through it, obviously at like 7 in the morning, you got to be there, rah rah, everyone get all excited. I remember like my first day was, what the hell is this all about? Yeah. But it was all about getting us revved up, getting you mentally psyched, so on. So you kind of went through the same process.
Exact same process. I think that's what really made my discipline. Yeah. The way it was, because I thought that's how everybody handled it, because that was my only experience at the time of just going through timeshare. I thought everybody didn't, like, they gave you a test with a blank sheet of paper. You got to write the script out. Yeah. So, that was the job that I would get, because I knew it could change my life. So I would literally study until I went to sleep. Right. And then get up the next morning, listen to record myself pitching. So that's the intensity of just wanting to make the cuts.
Yeah. So you did that now for a few years. What made you get into going from doing timeshare now to selling, traditional real estate?
One thing that entrepreneurs will figure out, the ups and downs of figuring it out. Yeah. I wanted to stabilize it. And I at that point, I was trying to figure out what lane I wanted to get into. At that point, I went and started actually driving trucks as well. So I was just trying to figure out life, because it was, you would sell, go through a little bit of things, you weren't selling. So I had to figure it out. End up driving trucks, and then I had this epiphany, was like, you know what, I'm not done with real estate. So I got a mentor, and end up getting introduced to Kim. Okay. And got a coach, and then that's what kind of started me with my La Rosa, experience, where I got a coach, visited some office, met Ray, and that's kind of where it all began for me.
Right.
Yeah, having a direct tutelage to be able to say, okay, hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
The availability, the relationship, and the bond that I built with these guys has just been tremendous. And that's why, you know, I got so involved with La Rosa when I did. It was just something that, you know, I was able to transition from, like I was at the resort, how I would knock doors. I did the same thing. Again, it was going through some ups and downs again.
Yeah.
So I started thinking about selling my house. So I did all the research about the community, and I just door knocked like I did at the resort.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, 2 houses later, I had my first listing. Actually, I didn't even have the listing agreement done, and I actually had a buyer. I first brought my buyer to my first listing. So it was, you know, just figuring it all out. It definitely worked out well, and just kept doing it. That's how I was meeting everybody.
Yeah.
Door knocking. Find somebody in the neighborhood to tell me about everybody, what's going on. And next thing you know, I'm listing their house, their neighbor's house, and that's where the listing lead nickname came in.
About to say, so for those that don't know, because I don't think we've said it yet, so your nickname is Listing Lee.
Yes. So that was for me, door knocking, getting listings out the community.
Well, listen, man. I mean, if you're out there, you know, door knocking, basically like your first year or so, like in the business, that's probably one thing that I would say that we know works.
Yeah, it
right.
Works.
But most folks are just kind of like, I guess they're scared of doing it, right? It's just, you know, it's their, you know, obviously we know in sales you have to be comfortable with rejection.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like getting rejected when you're like standing right there at their door and they're just slamming your face saying, "Get the heck out of my property."
You know, it became more of like the situation behind the door. Is what I used to look at it. Like, okay, this situation has a time frame. They're waiting for the kids to get out of school. They're wanting to do it in this window, and I just keep following up. You know, one lady I wrote a letter to. The situation happened when I knew they had a death in the family. So at that point, they were like, you know, they were on my radar. And, you know, I took so much pride with having a listing in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, if I couldn't sell a house in my neighborhood, you know, that's kind of where I felt like I got my act together when it came down to how to manage the process to a point where I can expand and do listings in other cities like Miami. And just because I managed and mastered the process of listing and communicating with the clients.
So when's the best time of day to door knock?
I felt like later in the afternoon.
Yeah?
Yeah. You know, I could read a neighborhood pretty good. You know, looking at cars in the driveway, I try and catch people out in the yard. It's an easy conversation.
Yeah.
I just really...
So like weekdays or weekends better?
Oh, I think, well, I like weekends for open houses. However, I would just pick different times.
Yeah.
Just ride the neighborhood, kind of get an idea, do some research so I can discuss about what's going on in their community. Everybody wants to kind of keep up to date with what's going on. And you find the ones that, when they react to you, that's how you know if they had interest.
So let's just say I'm outside my my house. I'm doing my lawn, right? Yep. You see me out there. How do you approach someone like myself? Like, what's like you have like an opening line that you do?
Absolutely. I rehearsed it so much. I'd be like, "Hey, my name is Edward Lee. I'm a local realtor in the community. Just wanted to give you guys a quick update about what's going on in the neighborhood." Yeah. And I'd name off streets in the neighborhood and be like, "Hey, this house is very similar to yours, and it sold around this price point, and it sold pretty quickly. So if you're ever considering maybe getting a bigger or smaller home, I'd actually be glad to walk you through the process. There's no obligations, so there's no pressure, but it just gives you an idea of what's going on. So if you were to, how everything would play out, also how the transition, you know, so I would make them very comfortable. Right now I'm going around talking to everybody in the community, just giving a quick update. Right. But I'll get your information, and I'll get this information back out to you in the form of a CMA and a net sheet, and then, of course, we can schedule time to go more in detail. Yeah. So that's what I would do to gather everybody's information.
Listen, the truth is, for all those that are just like afraid to go out there and try and like knock on doors or go talk to people, everybody wants to know like what the value of their house is, right? And so like what we take for advantage is that we're in real estate. So we are obviously more, you know, up to date kind of what our own properties are worth or what the neighborhood is, but not everyday folks, right? So sometimes they're going to get their information, whether it's from Zillow or someplace else, that we know is not always going to be accurate. So, you know, I've always seen that even myself, you know, I would get folks every now and then coming by my house. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm curious, what do you think my property's worth? Because I want to know, right? Because obviously it financially is going to impact my family and I. So it's not, to me, it's not that difficult of a question or way to kind of get into a conversation.
Yeah, it's just more of creating a relationship.
Yeah.
Once you get an idea of their situation, because based on the questions you ask and what they're talking about, you can kind of get a feel of if it's a now situation or maybe a back burner. And at that point, I'm just really gathering, because I don't know what to expect. I just go with, hey, let me give you some good, helpful information. And if they respond to me, then I would kind of go with the flow.
What's the craziest scenario that you've ever had where someone like, you ever get someone that basically like slam a door, throw something at you, or, you know?
Well, I've had so many. Well, I used to have one lady that I would literally have coffee with every morning.
Yeah.
And this lady knew everybody's situation. And she would tell me about this family, they're in financial distress. Her husband died, and every door she was 100% right.
Right.
And it was just like, wow, you know. And then I actually ended up selling her home when the time was right, because everybody had a situation or a number.
Sure.
So when we started getting close, I was like, hey, you know, the last house was close and they were similar. Yeah. So if you're ready, I got you. And you know, it was one of those things that it was something that I was working towards, and it started happening, and it's just, you know, it was a good feeling. Yeah, really good feeling.
Yeah. So I like what you said. Everybody has a number, right? Yeah.
Everybody has a number or situation.
Yeah. So well, true, very true. So I had a situation with my own personal home, like, you know, about a year and a half ago, where I told my wife, I'm like, you know what, I don't want to sell, but here's my number, and they came back with a higher number than what my number was. So I'm like, sold, like done deal, right? So obviously now when the market kind of softens a little bit, and this is kind of a curious thing, actually, before I give it away, how do you see the market right now?
The market, everybody still needs the product. Right. Everybody still needs a place to live. It's just showing them how to find a house within their budget.
But here's the deal. So if you go on social media right now, which people get their news from, which I don't understand why, but you know, a lot of folks will kind of say, "Oh, real estate market, you know, real estate market sucks right now. The real estate market, you know, is horrible. You know, it's gonna collapse. It's all this stuff." But you're out there every day working the real estate. So I want you to tell everybody that's watching what is really going on in the real estate world today.
Well, I guess focus on the people who want to be helped.
Yeah,
you know, and I've had to learn that lesson myself, because I've focused on some of the ones that I've lost. You know, and it does kind of take your energy, but I focus on the ones that I can do more for, opposed to the ones that don't want the help right now.
Right.
And I felt that that's where more of my focus need to be.
Sure.
You know, focus on the ones and finding more people who felt that way, opposed to trying to talk them into the benefits of buying. Yeah.
But are you seeing the activity now that we're, you know, kind of coming out of the spring market? You know, did you see the activity kind of pick back up? Because I know for a lot of, even I got friends, obviously, that they're real estate owners too as well. I mean, they own real estate companies or other real estate related, you know, ancillary services. And I would say probably like last like November, December, and January, a little bit of February, we're all kind of like, oh shit, like, man, like it really has slowed down. But then all of a sudden, I kind of felt like, for us at least, like March, it was just like, bam, all of a sudden, like someone just flipped a switch, and now, you know, the activity kind of picked back up.
It has a very unique market because we've been expanding a lot. Of course, Apopka, Davenport, they've been expanding, so people are able to get more house for their money on the outskirts. So it's really been a benefit for, I've had people like my stepsister just transition in, got a nice 5-bedroom, 2.5 bath in Davenport for a great price, new construction. So it was a great situation. And, you know, friends that have been kind of shopping that, you know, sometimes I think there's a thing about, hey, how does the realtors work? Because buyers don't quite understand that it's a free service for them, because the people they're buying from are actually the one that's going to pay us. So I had friends that just weren't educated about, hey, how does it work? Because they were concerned about their situation. They didn't know a realtor was like almost like a lawyer in court. Yeah. So when you're going to the new construction, I'm trying to make sure they're representing the builder. You need someone representing you. Right. And it's like a consultation. You know, same thing with the door knocking. What I felt that worked best for me is take the concerns away from them before they even have them. Yeah. Hey, you know what? This is how this works. There's no obligation. and also breaking down the benefits and how everything works with buying. So that way they understand, hey, I'm just representing you. You're my focus, not which property. I'm making sure that your transaction goes through smoothly and you know what to expect.
Yeah. So what are you doing today right now, right? So, you know, I started off, you know, the show by saying, listen, you know what, you've been able to continue to rock it here in 2023. What are you doing right now besides knocking on doors?
Well, I also put an emphasis behind social media because I saw the growth and what that was doing. Yeah. So one of my traits that I took from timeshare was the wow factor. Okay. So I've the last few years I toured all the new construction properties and recorded them. Right. So what you've been seeing from me on my post is me basically releasing all these videos because I became my own videographer. So these are videos that I basically put out just to remind people I'm in real estate, but using the wow factors of the new construction. Okay. So I'll tour the property and, you know, I'll just put them all out, and then it drives brand awareness, communication about new construction. Obviously, I've been to all of them. Right. You know, so my job is to get to know and understand so I can help people with these products. So that's what I've been doing to kind of help keep myself relevant in branding.
So knocking on doors, going out there, you know, just promoting like heck, trying to create that wow factor. Yes. More on new construction?
Well, new construction is the ones that are set up. They're really nice. Yeah. So it gives you a couple different factors of just kind of talking about the property, the decor, and just giving people what they want to see. Yeah. You know, so a mixture of everything.
So what are your plans now for the second half of this year?
Really, kind of coming from the summit, I'm focused on really drilling down my habits. Okay. One thing I think I took away was the state of mind. Yeah. Get into that state of mind, talking about what it takes to be a top producing agent. Because when I first got in, you know, obviously I coached for a while. I want to say I was all over the place, but at the beginning of the year, we set our goals. And then in the middle of the year, when you start changing the direction, it kind of changes your path a little bit. Yeah. So I was able to kind of, now that I'm a little bit more seasoned, I kind of say, hey, you know what? I need to make all my actions reflect what I'm trying to do with my goals. Yeah. Trying to grow my brand and be a top producer.
Man, listen, you know what? I will tell you this. You know, it's when it comes to goals, a lot of folks make the mistake is that they set a goal, you know, a certain time of year, but obviously things change. You know, I go back to 2022 for an example. Is a great example. Even 2020 with the pandemic, but January 1st of 2022, like we all probably created our New Year's resolutions. Mm-hmm. You know, this and that. Market was on fire. It was like things were just happening like left and right, and all of a sudden, like 4 or 5 months later, like the whole world changes. Right, rates start going up through the roof. Everything else. So you had to have gone back to your business plan, your goals, and you had to have tweaked them. Right. You know what? A word that everyone kind of overused during the pandemic was pivot. Right. Mm-hmm. You have to always be able to pivot, literally at any moment, to be able to continue to, you know, modify your goals so that you can hit them. Mm-hmm. And so on. So whether they're expanding them, whether they're narrowing them down to one particular thing. Mm-hmm. But, you know, one of the things that I've been really proud to see you kind of want to do lately, and this is, you know, I know you and I are due to have this conversation, is you're also wanting to now kind of move more into like leadership, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, being behind the scenes from before, seeing the company continue to grow, and just being involved with the growth, it was a good feeling because I think it grew me up mentally to be able to see the big picture of what La Rosa does, how it impacts the involvement of coaching, being able to impact people on a higher level and help them get their careers and be able to create lasting relationships with the people that at one point you've coached. That it's a great feeling because as you grow, they grow. Obviously, I'm a part of the rev share, so I want to make sure I give them everything I can to make sure that they're successful because their success helps me in the future. Sure. So that, and then the rev share made me really want to get more involved with leadership because I want to be able to personally recruit people like I have in the past to be able to say, hey, everything that I've learned, you have access to. Yeah. I want to help see you grow because obviously when you grow, I grow. Yeah. And that's
we grow together.
A great thing. Yeah, we grow together.
Yeah. See, some people don't realize that La Rosa has a rev share plan. So that's one of the things that we are going to start promoting more from our side here. So let me ask you this, Edward. So if you could go back in time, let's just say, I don't know, 5 years, right? what's one piece of advice that you would give yourself 5 years ago from what you've learned?
Start sooner.
Start sooner?
Start sooner.
And what do you mean by that?
I just, just getting in there, getting involved, getting a good mentor, when it starts happening, it can happen so fast. Like, you know how some of the top producers were brand new in the business.
Yeah.
Because they're so hungry. They're because when you get that first, check, I ain't gonna lie, I cried.
Yeah.
Because it was that moment of trying to get there.
Of course.
To be able to have the opportunity to make that type of living. And, when you can do that and master that, and it's a good feeling because it gives you that freedom, but also you're in the business of kind of doing that for people. I know the benefit of our product is great because 5 years from now, the equity they're going to have and the options they're going to have, that's a good feeling for me because I feel like I put people in position to win. Yeah.
That's what I love about you, man. It's not about just the transaction. It's about helping these families understand that this is sometimes really probably one of the most important financial family decisions that they could ever make. And obviously, when you got someone like Edward here that's going to be looking out for their best interest, that's what it's all about, right?
Yes, definitely.
So you said it a few times. I'm going to kind of close with this, and then we'll let the folks kind of hear where they can kind of, follow you and get more information about yourself. But you've talked about having a mentor a couple of different times here today. How important is that and why?
Well, it's important because sometimes they're going to challenge you. And a lot of times, sometimes you're not going to see it. There's been times that I didn't get the big picture, and then I kept hearing it from other people. I was like, well, maybe I have to start being more coachable.
Yeah.
It's one of those life things. It's just the reason I say that is because you got to get past what you've already known,
right,
and kind of relearn things on the basics of how you see things. And I think that was a challenge for me because I used to sell based off of what I could afford.
Yeah.
And that was something I had to get past, like sell it like it's supposed to be sold and let them decide. And I never forget when I was going back to my timeshare days and I sold it so well, she said yes to the first price, and that was just the setup.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, it's time.
Yeah.
This process, and when you do everything and you laugh and you get to know people, this process really works.
Right.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so tell all of our viewers that are out there, where can they find you, man? If they're interested in saying, you know what, I want to have this guy come by and give me an idea of what my house is worth today.
Well, you can, of course, you can go to my website, listinglee.com. You can find me on any platform, Instagram or Facebook, Edward Lee, a.k.a. Listing Lee. And
you're actually able to pull the listinglee.com? Is that your domain?
That's my domain.
That's a cool domain, man. You would think by now somebody. How long have you had that?
For about 5 years now.
Okay, all right.
For about 4 to 5 years.
Listinglee.com. So listinglee.com. That's where you have to go to, and this young man will be at your home if you would like, and talk about how he can get your house sold.
Definitely.
So cool, man. I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you.
And it was fun. So all right. So all those of you that are watching, thank you again for joining in here on the Joe La Rosa Show, and we will see you next time.